Linguistics Behind the Scenes.
What you always wanted to know about language and how to explore it.
With Christina Sanchez-Stockhammer.
And Dominic Piazza.
Hello everyone out there, and hello Dominic.
Yes, hi Christina. I hope that you're doing well. It's nice to hear from you again, to be back on our podcast. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well indeed. What about you?
I'm also doing well. But if you caught me when I'm not making a podcast, I might tell you I'm doing good.
Oh, but I suppose that's fine as well, isn't it?
Well, depends on if you take a prescriptivist or descriptivist approach to language. In a conversational sense, it's good, but in a grammatical sense, maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, grammarians sometimes believe that in certain contexts you have to use an adverb rather than an adjective. So I am doing, and then another word with it should be an adverb, because with do you use an adverb. So I'm doing, well, rather than I'm doing good.
Yes.
But in other contexts, well, I mean, you might also say, I'm good,
Right.
So that would be okay.
Right.
So that's an adjective here. So I think that creates a lot of confusion.
Yes, which is funny, right? Because the antonym of good is bad. So the opposite of I'm good would be I'm bad, which is probably not a phrase you would say. Well, I guess Michael Jackson said it in his very famous song.
I'm bad.
Incredible song. That era of Michael Jackson is wonderful. Although I'm more of a fan of Smooth Criminal and the moonwalk. But so technically speaking, good is not an adverb. And so it shouldn't be attached to a verb technically, not that it really matters, but often if someone's trying to teach you this difference, and if you say, I'm doing good, they'll say, no, you're not. Superman does good. You're doing well.
Aww, that's nice.
I suppose so. And one who does good is a do-gooder, but actually that term is actually rather derogatory, so to speak, but makes sense nonetheless grammatically. Christina, we are here to talk about the wonderful world of adverbs.
Yeah, I mean, adverbs are really a very special category. I mean, very often people might believe that it's words ending in ly, like quickly or happily, but actually it's a lot more complicated than that. So very often when you have a sentence and want to analyze what the parts of speech of the different words are, then the adverbs are what you're left with if you don't know what to do. For example, in the sentence, yesterday, I unfortunately went there very fast. Well, yesterday is an adverb. Unfortunately is an adverb. There is an adverb. Very is an adverb. Fast is an adverb. It's crazy because these words are so completely different, And so David Crystal, a very famous linguist, he says that the adverbs are a dustbin category.
Time words can be adverbs? Like yesterday?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah,
That's
absolutely.
the grammatical function.
Wow.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So time words, place words. So words like now or yesterday or then, all of these words are adverbs, but also here and there, they're also adverbs. So that's exactly the problem, that all of these words are thrown into the same category. And that is like, when you try and determine what are the different parts of speech of words, well, I mean, some of them are relatively easy to classify. You've got nouns, you've got adjectives, prepositions are possibly also quite straightforward. But then, there's certain words which are really, really hard to classify, and then they're classified as adverbs.
Yeah, right off the top, you mentioned the ly adverbs. And, usually this is what students are probably taught in the beginning. Adverbs are these ly words. Not a bad piece of advice, because I think probably most of them, the regular ones, most of them they do end in ly, but not all of them do. We mentioned in the beginning good and well. That's an irregular one. If we wanted to regularize it, I suppose it would be goodly. which is not a word. Although interestingly, badly is a word. But
that's true.
Although usually we would use poorly as the antonym to well. But and then you also mentioned fast, right? Fast is an adverb. It's not fastly. It's an adverb as it is, but you have to say quickly and you have to say slowly, at least usually. Sometimes you might see a sign that says drive slow, and I guess that might be okay. And then you have other really confusing ones like home, like to go home. Home functions as an adverb. I was very old before I realized that, because home to me is a noun. And it is most of the time.
It is, yeah. But if you go home, it means you go there. And there is an adverb. So in that case, if you can replace it with there, it's an adverb and not a noun. Oh gosh. Yeah. I suppose in a way you could, if you were to extend it, it's I'm going homeward, so to speak. Yeah.
And I think homeward is a word, but it's a little bit literary.
Yeah, but that's also an adverb. Exactly. I mean, some adverbs are simple adverbs like here and there, but others end in ly or in ward, for example.
Directional
like
words,
homeward.
forward, backward.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, all of these. Exactly, directions. They are also adverbs. And that's just because the adverbs are a very, very mixed bag. And that's exactly the thing. I mean, for the other categories, I mean, traditional grammar had those very neat definitions that tell you, okay, this is a noun, this is an adjective. But in the end, there's a lot of words that you don't really know what to do with. And then you say, well, let's call them adverbs. So I think it's a bit similar when you categorize, other things. For example, when you're cleaning up your room and then you're tidying things up and then you think, oh, well, I've got several things of this type, and you put them into one drawer and then you fill another drawer with things of another type. And then there's some stuff and there's not enough of it to kind of have individual drawers for each. And then you say, oh, well, I'll just throw together. And so it's a bit what happens to the adverbs.
Dustbin category. That's a trash can for the Americans in the audience. They might be, they're probably familiar with that one. Nevertheless, this is quite a nerdy subject. It's not usually too much of a sticking point for English learners, but it's definitely fascinating for some of the nerdier linguists out there, because I didn't even know that all those different words are adverbs. It really is a large category.
Yeah, but also as a learner, I mean, it's helpful to know that something is an adverb. I mean, in some cases you have to analyze sentences, and in other cases, well, you want to see, oh, wait a moment, if this is an adverb, then it will probably behave in a particular way. Even though, of course, as I said, the problem is that it's such a mixed bag that you have a lot of subcategories there. And, well, they're not really kept apart. For example, I mean, some of the adverbs modify a verb. If you say, he ate hungrily, then you have a manner adverb that tells you something about the verb, how it's done. And by the way, I mean, that's also where the name adverb comes from, adverb.
Yeah, but sadly the complications run deeper, right? Because they don't just modify verbs.
Well, no, not exactly. But still they're adverbs, because, I mean, if you think about the origin of the word, it comes from Latin. Verbum means word. So they are actually linked to other words. They modify other words. And so, for example, they modify adjectives. So you could say, she was very happy. Not just happy, but very happy. So very is also an adverb. It intensifies the adjective.
Right, they're called intensifiers. But I didn't know that intensifiers were a form of adverb.
They are. And the same, I mean, you can also use intensifiers with other adverbs. You could say, he came very slowly. So in that case, slowly ends in ly, so it's a typical adverb. And so very also intensifies it. So that's yet another thing. Or they can comment on a sentence, like when you say, later, I'll come, or sadly, he wasn't there. So in all of these cases, later or sadly, well, you make a kind of comment on the whole sentence. So sometimes they actually also kind of comment on a whole sentence, but very often they will actually be linked to other words like verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, which they modify.
Only a few minutes into this episode, and I'm already learning a lot. Adverbs can be unfortunately punishing. I was happy when learning German, if anyone's learning German, this is a lot easier because German doesn't do this. They don't. The adverbs don't change form, right? So you wouldn't say I'm doing well in German. You would say I'm doing good, and that is the perfect grammatically correct way to say that. So it's simpler.
It is, but then if you use it as an adjective, then you have to inflect it according to the gender,
right?
And to the case and all these
things. So
it
has its own complications. Yeah. Nevertheless, that was a funny quirk that I noticed, at least in comparison to English. And then sometimes the adverb might not need the ly ending, but if it has the ly ending, that can change the meaning. The most famous example is hard and hardly, right? To work hard is, well, it's to work very intensely. It's usually it's a very good thing. To work hardly, so to speak, well, to hardly do something, to hardly have anything, to hardly see anything means that you barely did it. You barely have it. It's so to work hardly meant you barely worked at all. And so a little funny phrase. Maybe your supervisor at work will say it to you if they see you kind of standing around. They'll say, "Are you working hard or hardly working?"
Yeah, so that's all really, really complicated. I mean, even for native speakers, but more so for learners. So what I was wondering about is if adverbs are such a mixed bag, is it possible to find some way of putting them neatly into different categories?
Okay.
So using statistics. And so I teamed up with a statistician, Anthony Unwin. Yes, he's the person who's taught me most of the things that I know about statistics, I would say. And so he helped me with statistics in different projects. And we wrote an article together about adverbs in which we wanted to see how we can use statistics and visualization techniques in order to kind of group them into categories. If there's some way of doing so that uses hard and fast criteria.
Cool. Hard and fast. Very cool. Cool. Fast is a bit of a contronym, right? Because to do something fast is to do it quickly, but to hold fast is to stay in place. Contronyms being words that are their own antonyms, a very fun category of words. Yeah, this is all very, very complicated. But Mr. Unwin, that's a name that sounds familiar. He is a frequent collaborator of yours.
That's true, yeah. So we collaborated in my PhD thesis, in my habilitation thesis, and we also did a summer school together on the visualization of linguistic data with R. And Dominic, you told me you're also familiar with R, right?
Yes, I am. In university, for my political science degree, it was a requirement. We had to take one class learning how to use R. It is, well, first of all, it's free, which is probably the best part about it, because other types of statistical software, I don't know, things like Stata and such can cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars, annual fees. R is free, and so it has a huge community of people online, lots of support, lots of people talking about it. It also has like installable add-ons, like packages that you can install. That's actually highly recommended. But basically, it's essentially a very fancy graphing calculator, or kind of a statistical processing software that primarily is used to produce graphics. And you actually use it, unlike a calculator, which has buttons and with numbers and things on it. You actually control it, well, using a form of code. You type to it.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to type in different types of command. And that means that on the one hand, it looks very complicated and scary for people who haven't used it yet. But on the other hand, it means it's extremely flexible, and that makes it very, very powerful. And it's actually one of the most important types of software used in linguistics. And I mean, visualizations are very important. So graphs are very important in linguistics.
Oh, yeah.
And in many publications, the ones that you will find, the beautiful ones that you will find, were produced with R. And that's why it's so important to try and learn at least a bit of it.
Oh yeah. And it's free, which I emphasize because that is the primary selling point, right? That when something is free, it is democratized. It's available to everyone. And so, the community of people who use it and the huge wealth of knowledge and resources is just, the value of that cannot be understated. And it's also, as I understand, it's very important in the social sciences. Like I told you, I think it's the standard in political science as well, and many other fields.
Yeah. And the nice thing is that even if you possibly don't know how to do all these things yourself, I mean, there's quite a lot of information online.
Oh,
and
yeah.
for example,
YouTube tutorials.
Yeah, YouTube tutorials. But for example, Anthony Unwin, he also wrote different books. And there you can see different types of graphic with explanations, what they show. And you also get the code. So you can just copy paste that into R and then you modify the parts. So if it says blue somewhere, but you want it to be green, well, you just modify that and then you can create your own graphics that way. So that's the nice thing about it, that you can take something as a basis and then very easily produce your own graphics that way.
Yeah, I mean, graphs, data visualization is hugely beneficial in so many different ways. I mean, first of all, statistics and data visualization might sound a little bit stuffy, except if you take a step back and then take a look at the news that you read every day, you might see a lot of statistics quoted all over the place. And throughout your daily life, people will say statistics to you, which they heard somewhere. And graphs are really, really useful for communicating data to the public. They're really, really useful for communicating data to other scientists. They're useful for communicating data to yourself. Sometimes it's not until you graph your own data that you take a look at it and you go, oh my God, you can draw so many conclusions from it just from looking at it. So yeah, this isn't so academic. This has a lot of real world utility.
You make it sound as if those were opposites, but actually, well, why shouldn't academic things be useful,
Fair enough. I suppose I mean the relevance it may have to the listener, that I think this topic is quite relevant to just about everyone.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, of course, how much data, let's say, all of our listeners have that they want to analyze. But anyone who has data, I mean, it's the recommendation that I got from Anthony Unwin was that if you want to get an overview of your data, it's extremely useful to just use visuals, because that helps you to recognize patterns that you can't see in the numbers themselves. So it's very helpful for getting an idea of what there is in your data set. And for example, if you're comparing different things with each other, different values, if you use a visualization, then you may see at a glance if two sets are actually different, if they look different in size. And then presumably the difference is relevant. Whereas if you just look at significance, when you calculate the significance, the statistical significance, well, I mean, that's important and it's very useful in many contexts. But if you have a lot of data, then sometimes a lot of things will seem significant. But if you make a visualization and look at it, well, you'll see that the differences are not huge. So probably they're not really relevant. And so anything that you can see with your eyes in a visualization will presumably be relevant in the interpretation of your results.
Exactly, Christina, exactly. And also, even if you're not producing data or visualizations yourself, it's good to be literate in understanding how to read them, because first thing we learn in statistics class is that there are many ways where you can take honest data and you can present it in maybe a misleading way. I think it's difficult to explain in a podcast format because this is just audio. Probably the number one culprit is manipulating your y-axis so that it doesn't start at zero. That is a way to take perhaps a difference which might be really minuscule, and you can exaggerate it visually to make it look huge. This happens quite often, sadly. But.
It does, because I mean, if you don't start at 0, but let's say at 200, then it is as if you zoomed in. Now, just imagine if you have a smooth surface and look at it with a microscope, it won't be smooth anymore. It's not fair, because then you will say, oh, I mean, there's huge irregularities here. When actually, at the level at which you should be looking at it, there isn't. For that reason, it's important to really start at 0 to make things comparable whenever possible.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It almost reminds me of the world. The world is not a perfectly smooth ball. But I was told if you were actually to shrink the world down into a ball, into the palm of your hand, it would essentially feel completely smooth. All of the mountains, all of the peaks, all of the pits, at that scale, are actually rather irrelevant. So yeah, it's like you're zooming in. I mean, of course, there can be very good reasons for doing it, but often it's a little bit sneaky.
Yeah, and I mean other things. Well, they may also kind of distort what you're trying to show. For example, when people are using 3D graphics, so usually plain graphics, simple graphics are best to show quite a lot of things and to analyze your data. At least that's what I took away from, expert statisticians.
Oh, 100%. This is a really important topic, but difficult to explain in an audio format because we're talking about visuals. So I won't risk confusing the listeners too much. But this is definitely something. If you don't know it already, I'd say it's good to learn a thing or two about statistics, even if you might not be doing statistics, because all of us consume statistics almost on a daily basis.
Yeah, and same for visualizations. Mm-hmm. It's good to have a rough idea of what they represent. And sometimes you even find them in series. Do you know How I Met Your Mother?
I know of it. Yes, I know of it. Yeah, very familiar.
Yeah, it's a very, very sweet series. And there, one character, Marshall, one day he decides to produce a lot of graphics. And then he makes a pie chart of his favorite bars and a bar graph of his favorite pies.
Fantastic. So we've talked now a bit about this topic of data, of graphs and charts and visualization. But all of this is because you did this study on adverbs and you needed this for your study. So what did you do?
So what we did is, first of all, we needed some adverbs. And to get the adverbs, exactly,
Fair.
We got a list of words from a corpus, a digital text collection. And so we just took the most frequent, let's call it words from a corpus. And then in that list that we got from another researcher, there were 206 adverbs. So they had already included the part of speech, and then we concentrated on those.
That's helpful.
And absolutely. And so the nice thing is that the material that we used is material that I had already used before in my PhD thesis on, the word family integration of English words in general.
Cool.
And that meant that I had a lot of data available for each of those adverbs. And I wanted to see to what extent that data that I had, which was like all the different qualities, all the characteristics, whether that helped group them in some way or another, which wasn't influenced by me or by my co-author, but really just kind of objective.
Yeah, so these different qualities of these words, we compare it to humans. Humans come in many different shapes and sizes, different ages, different origins, right?
Yeah.
And words are similar in a way.
Absolutely, yeah. So same thing here for the age. For example, I had information on how long the adverbs had been in the English language. So since Old English times or Middle English times or later. Another thing is where they came from, what language. So Germanic or Romance, or are they a mixture? And there's also some more criteria. For example, if it's possible to split up the adverb into parts, what kind of word formation process there is. So is it a compound? For example, when you look at the adverbs, for example, you'll find that some of them are simple adverbs like just. You can't split that up anymore. But others are compounds like somewhere, hereby, and others again are derivatives like oddly, clockwise, or sidewards. So you can have a suffix in the end. And so this and a few more criteria. Well, I had that for all of these different adverbs. And then we used all these criteria. And then we used clustering to see if the words could be grouped.
Yes, and these adverbs with suffixes, I would say, are the most easily identifiable adverbs, right? Like the ly adverbs and words and y's and things that we talked about. The confusion arises when you realize that the adverbs go far beyond the ones with suffixes.
Yes, that's true. Again, they're mixed bag. I mean, there's quite a lot of compound adjectives and also a few ones that you can't split up any further. And like many other things in language, there's a very strong relation to frequency, because if you look at those adverbs that are particularly frequent in the language, then these tend to be short and of Germanic origin, like not, out, up, or so. But of course, at the other end, if you look at the least frequent ones, then you will find adverbs like subsequently or essentially or precisely. And these are of Latin origin for the base. And then you have the Germanic "ly" added in the end.
Oh, fascinating. I thought we weren't supposed to mix different origins. No, it's a fake rule. That's a fake rule. Lots of fake rules.
A very fake rule.
Very fake rule.
Not one that anyone should try to use.
100%. Don't listen to any prescriptivist grammarian who may share this with you. I was stunned when I learned that the English word very, which is our simplest intensifier. It is the go-to simplest core intensifier. It's a foreign origin. It's of Latin origin. I was stunned because usually, very high frequency words are far less likely to be foreign in origin. But they can be. We do have them.
They can be. Exactly.
But for a word with such core importance as very, I wasn't expecting that.
Nah, sometimes you find things that you didn't expect, you know? That's the nice thing about research. And I mean, like another nice thing is that we use those visualizations. So what we did is, for example, that we used a clustering. So we had dots of different colors for the different words according to their characteristics, how they could be grouped, and actually relatively neat groups arose. And we used different methods, and in the end, we arrived at the conclusion that the meaning of the adverb wasn't so important, but a few other things were.
Yeah, the meaning, which we shouldn't forget, right? The actual definition of these words might be one of the more important things to keep an eye on. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's at least something that non-linguists typically do. I mean, you think particularly about what does that adverb represent on a more abstract level? Does it refer to place or to time or to manner or degree? So all of that was also coded. But in the end, it turned out that this was actually not so important in arriving at different groups. So we used different methods, and these methods agreed. And they agreed in suggesting that there's 3 nice groups and 1 additional category with the outliers. So again, a dustbin category.
Yeah, the miscellaneous. Yeah, my favorite.
But a very small one in that case.
Thank goodness. Okay, so we learned about how you collected these words. We learned about how you evaluated them for their different qualities so you could group them together. In the end, what were the groups that you compiled?
Interestingly, the groups were mainly based on the word formation processes. That's something that surprised me. So not on the meaning, but on the word formation. So
what do you mean by that?
Yeah, the first group was actually the words that could be split up into parts, like next, very, or less. So that's a very neat group. The second one was all those adverbs ending in "ly", like previously, surely, immediately. And the third one contained words that you can split up into parts, but which are not suffixations. So we had anywhere, maybe, along, or below. So some of these are compounds and some are prefixations. And that's quite interesting because so based on the fact that you can split up the words into parts, but also what the word formation process is, you actually get these very nice clusters, and they can explain quite a lot of the data.
Okay, 3 groups. That's pretty satisfying. That's nice. I mean, that's nice. Yeah. That is a nice, very small number. 3 primary groups, and then this 4th group, which was the miscellaneous category, the dustbin. How many were in that category?
the nice thing is it was just 9 words out of 206, which means that about 96% of the words could be explained, could be grouped by these methods. So actually, this is a very good way of grouping the adverbs into clusters.
Yeah, that clean study. That's a clean study. That came out nicely for sure. It doesn't always come out so nice and neat. So yeah, very nice. So what were the sizes of these groups? I mean, intuitively, I would assume our traditional suffixed adverbs, the ly adverbs, I would assume that was the biggest group. Was it?
Yeah, you're right. So those ending in "ly," those were actually 81 adverbs. So that is the largest group.
Approaching half.
Followed by the group that has words that can be split up into parts that don't end in "ly," so those were 65. And the ones that are simple adverbs that can't be split up, those were 51.
And are all of the simple adverbs a single syllable, or just they're more likely to be single syllable?
Yeah, that's an interesting question indeed, because you might believe that if they can't be split up, then they should just have one syllable. But actually, there's various words that have more than one syllable which can't be split up into parts, at least not from the perspective of a present-day speaker of the language. Words like over or perhaps or together or rather. Yeah. So there are some words in that category with more than one syllable.
Yeah, nice. So 3 primary groups, all with definitions which are pretty intuitive. This was a very nice study. You know, I think the first thing you kind of learn when you're trying to do science is that you start with these dreams, you start with these big ideas, and then as you move through it, you just have to whittle it away due to reality and practicality, and it doesn't always work out, doesn't always come out so nice and neat. So this was a very nice study. And so, you know, we talked about, okay, you got the words, you analyze them for their different qualities, you group them together into these 3 primary groups. Now, how did you visualize your data?
Yeah, indeed. I was really happy. And I mean, in the end, it was a nice paper with a lot of colorful graphics. And I like colorful graphics.
Me too. I like color in general. So I agree with you.
Me too, because it allows us to group things. I mean, when things are the same color, we intuitively think, oh, yeah, somehow that must belong together. That must be a category. And so I think, yeah, color is great. And of course, it also makes the paper more attractive. But at the same time, what I learned from the statistician is that you shouldn't kind of just have graphics for the sake of having graphics, but really try to communicate an idea with the graphics, ideally.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the jargon term is color coding. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's a very intuitive way of visually grouping things together in a way that's very, very easy for people to see at a glance. And yeah, definitely graphics. Well, you know, it's a tool in a toolbox, and every tool has its purpose, and, you know, it should be used when you need it, and it probably shouldn't be used when you don't need it.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to visualizations, we're actually spoiled for choice. There's so many different tools that you can use. And I mean, the nice thing about R is that it's so flexible and that it can adapt to what the user needs. But otherwise, there's also very specific data visualization software like Word Value, which we developed in order to rainbow texts. But I think that is another story for another time.
Oh, yeah. Indeed, a different story for another time. We have lots and lots of different topics and stories to tell, and never enough time to tell them. Interestingly, Christina, I noticed whenever you talk about R, whether it's the letter R, which we talk about a lot in linguistics because, in English linguistics because of rhoticity, or it's the statistical software R, you usually pronounce it rhotically. I take it this is for clarity's sake.
Yeah, that's right. Because otherwise, I mean, if I just said R instead of R, which I would naturally do when speaking with a British English accent, then I wouldn't be pronouncing the R sound, which is strange, isn't it? Saying the name of a software without actually producing the sound R.
Yeah, it could be confused for, I don't know, like the sound produced by the letter A, or something like that. So I totally understand.
Yeah, but of course, I mean, possibly it's a case of hypercorrection. I'm a learner, so it might be that actually I should be saying R here. But well, I suppose people will understand me either way.
Well, I think language has a tendency to be tricky sometimes for everyone.
Yeah.
But Christina, what's a pirate's favorite letter?
Let me think. What could it be? Well, I suppose it's R.
But his first love be the sea.
Oh, that's beautiful. I like
No,
that.
that's not original. I got that somewhere, but that's a good one. That's a very good one. Christina, on that lovely note, I think we're just about ready to wrap it up here today. But this was a fascinating episode.
Absolutely. So I hope it was also fascinating for everyone who listened out there. Stay curious, have fun with language.
And join us next time on Linguistics Behind the Scenes.